I see those images coming from across the ocean, the streets of America filled with crowds, the echo of voices bouncing between their concrete towers, banners rising high against injustice. I feel the heartbeat of humanity awakening once more. I do not see disorder. I see awareness. I do not see enemies. I see a generation that refuses to kneel before power, that hides behind the mask of freedom. They name these gatherings anti-Trump protests. But I call them something far deeper, the trembling of an empire that has lost its soul. Tonight I speak not as the leader of Burkina Faso, not as a politician seeking applause, but as a son of Africa, one who knows the face of oppression no matter the accent it speaks with, or the flag it waves. I have heard the cries of those in America, people rising against arrogance, deception, and manipulation. They believe they are standing against Trump, but in truth they rise against the system that built him, a system that feeds on division, worships wealth above wisdom, and mistakes dominance for leadership. They once told us that democracy was the highest form of civilization, but what is democracy when Taple's voice is buried under the noise of money? What is liberty when truth drowns beneath propaganda? And what is leadership when it turns into a throne? There should be no king, not in Africa, not in America, not anywhere on this earth. The true king is the nation itself, the people themselves. No man, no matter how mighty he believes he is, should ever stand above the collective will of his people. I said it once in Ouagadougou, and I'll say it again to the world. If your power truly comes from the people, then your ears must stay close to their cries. The American government must not fear its protesters. It must listen to them. They are not traitors, they are patriots. They are not anarchists, they are builders of a fairer tomorrow. When people march not to destroy but to demand dignity, they remind our leaders that power is not an inheritance. It is a trust that must be renewed through every act of justice. True leadership is a sacred contract between those who govern and those who are governed. It is not written on paper. It is written on the hearts of the people. And each time they take to the streets, they are saying, we remember that contract. Do you, when citizens fill the avenues, when they raise their fists, not in hate but in hope? They are not tearing a country apart. They are stitching it back together. They are telling the rulers, you have strayed too far from your promise. Asterisk, they are the lifeblood of democracy, reminding the brain of power that it cannot survive without the body. Sustains it up. The people are not enemies of the state. They are the state. They are its conscience, its roots, its very breath. And when they speak, the wise leader listens, for silence at that moment marks the beginning of decay. Authority, my friends, is not owned. It is borrowed. It is lent by millions who dare to believe in a dream, who surrender a piece of their freedom, so that order may exist, but that loan comes with conditions. Humility, honesty, accountability, and the day a leader begins to believe power belongs to him personally, that day tyranny is born. When a ruler sees himself as irreplaceable, when he mistakes obedience for loyalty and fear for respect, he has already started laying the bricks of his own downfall. Power that goes unchecked becomes blind. It forgets its strength comes from consent, not coercion. It surrounds itself with flatterers, feed its illusion of greatness, and it forgets the people who lifted it from the dust. That is how tyranny hides, not in chains or crowns, but in the sweet language of security, stability, and order. They will tell you the protesters are dangerous when it is their own corruption that endangers the nation. They will tell you we must restore calm when it is their injustice that shattered the peace. Tyranny never admits failure. It always blames the people for daring to see. But truth, my brothers and sisters, cannot be buried forever. You can imprison a protester, but not his dream. You can silence a journalist, but not the questions burning in a million hearts. You can take down a voice online, but you can never unplug the human spirit. Truth is like the wind. It slips through every crack, whispers through every wall, and one day becomes a storm no fortress can withstand. Every idea whose time has come carries a force greater than any army. It does not march with weapons, it marches with conviction. It cannot be shot down, because it lives in the minds of the living and in the hopes of the unborn. History itself stands as witness to this truth. From the peasants who rose against their kings, to the slaves who rose against their masters, to the colonized who rose against mighty empires. Every oppressor once believed he could silence the people. Every tyrant thought he could bury the truth. But all of them learned too late. You can bury a man, but never a movement. So when the people rise to reclaim their dignity, the world must not look at them with fear, but with respect. For they are the guardians of civilization's flame. Their protest is not chaos. It is a mirror, forcing power to look at the corruption it refuses to see. And when a government begins to fear truth more than injustice, it has already surrendered its moral right to let. No bullet can destroy an idea whose time has arrived. No prison can contain a people who have awakened. Once the spirit of freedom enters the soul of a nation, it will not rest again. It will whisper across generations, echo through centuries until justice prevails. That is why I say when people rise not to destroy but to demand dignity, it is not rebellion. It is rebirth. Some will ask, why does Ibrahim Traoré speak about America? You have your own struggles in Africa. Yes, we have our struggles, but truth knows no borders, and justice anywhere, poisons justice everywhere. When I see the American people rising, I see a reflection of our own struggle in Burkina Faso, the same courage, the same hope, the same rejection of hypocrisy. When we stood against imperial domination, they called us rebels. When Americans stand against corruption, they are called rioters. The words may change, but the story remains the same. The story of people. Do you not see the irony? Those who lectured the world for decades about democracy now face rebellion in their own house. They told us to respect their systems, to imitate their institutions, to worship their models. But tell me, what kind of democracy trembles when its people speak? What kind of leadership fears its own citizens? I say this calmly but with truth. The United States must not see these protests as threats, but as opportunities. Opportunities to heal what has been broken for too long. Opportunities to listen, to reflect, to change. Power that cannot listen is already collapsing, and power that cannot correct itself is destined to fall beneath the weight of its arrogance. And some of you may wonder, what gives Ibrahim Traoré the courage to speak of America? It is not audacity, it is solidarity. For too long, the powerful have spoken about the powerless. Today let the powerless speak to the powerful. Let Africa remind the world, moral authority does not come from riches or weapons but from truth. These protests are not about one man called Trump. They are about a principle that no leader, no matter how admired or feared, should divide the very people he was meant to unite. When citizens march against injustice, they are fulfilling their democratic duty. When they demand respect, they are defending the soul of their constitution. The government must not enter them with tear gas or propaganda. It must enter them with humility. I have seen the images, police facing civilians, tension, anger, burning cars. I do not justify violence from any side. But I ask, what gives birth to this violence? Desperation. When dialogue is denied, resistance is born. When leaders become deaf, rebellion becomes the language of the unheard. You cannot demand peace where there is no justice, and you cannot demand silence from those choking on hypocrisy. I remember after the coup when I spoke before my people, they told me, Captain, the world will not understand you. And I said, I do not speak so the world may understand me. I speak for those whom the world has refused to understand for too long. I do not seek validation from those who built their empires upon our silence. I seek the liberation of the human spirit. African American, Asian, European, all are one in their hunger for dignity. The protesters in America may not know me, may never hear my name, but I hear them. I hear the pain in their chants, the exhaustion behind their anger. I hear the mothers who fear for their sons, to workers who feel forgotten, the youth who see no future in a land that promised everything. I hear them because their struggle is the struggle of all humanity betrayed by its own elites. And to the leaders of the United States, I say this, history is watching you, the world is watching you. When your people demand justice, do not hide behind walls and excuses. Do not call them enemies of the state. Remember, power without accountability is not leadership. It is occupation. The people are not your subjects. They are your sovereigns. You govern in their name, not above their heads. There should be no king, no man born to wear the crown of a nation. The only crown that deserves honor is collective air. It rests upon the heads of every citizen who believes in the dignity of their homeland. The true flag of a nation is not the cloth that waves above its buildings. It is the heartbeat of every honest man and woman who dares to stand for truth. The time has come not only for America, but for all nations to rethink what leadership truly means. We live in an age where power is worshipped more than principle, where lies travel faster than light, where justice is sold to the highest bidder and morality is mocked as weakness. But let me tell you this, civilizations do not fall because they lose wars. They fall because they lose their conscience. I have seen empires rise and collapse across the pages of history. Rome did not fall because of its enemies, but because of its corruption. The French monarchy did not fall because the peasants had weapons, but because their kings had no wisdom. The Soviet Union did not collapse because of capitalism, but because it stopped listening to its people. And America, yes, even America can fall if it continues to mistake dominance for destiny. To my brothers and sisters protesting in the streets, I say, do not lose faith. Every movement begins as a whisper. Every revolution begins as a question. You may be mocked, arrested, or told that your struggle is meaningless, but remember this, truth moves slowly, and then suddenly becomes unstoppable. You are not fighting against a man, you are fighting for an idea. The idea that power belongs to the people, and to the soldiers, to the police, to every man in uniform who faces these protesters. Remember, they are your people. Their anger is your mirror. Their pain is your pain. When you raise your weapon against them, You are raising it against your own future. The uniform you wear is not a license to silence. It is a duty to protect. Protect not the ruler, but the republic. Protect not the throne, but the truth. I have always said, the greatness of a nation is not measured by its GDP, but by its moral courage. America has given the world technology, cinema, and innovation. But now it must give the world something greater. Humility. The humility to admit when it has lost its way. The humility to listen to its own people. The humility to understand that strength without justice is weakness. I am not your enemy. I am not your ally. I am a witness of history, reminding you that power is temporary. Empires rise and fall, but humanity remains. The African knows this truth well, for we have seen colonial flags rise and fall. We have seen our land stolen and reclaimed, our voices silenced and reborn. That is why I speak, because silence in the face of injustice anywhere is complicity everywhere. The anti-Trump protests are not the end. They are the beginning of a reckoning long overdue. Whether you love him or despise him, understand this. Trump is not the disease, he is the symptom. The disease is arrogance. The arrogance of unchecked power, the worship of wealth, the addiction to domination. Until those are cured, new Trumps will rise, new divisions will form, and history will repeat itself under different names. You cannot build peace upon inequality. You cannot preach freedom while suffocating dissent. You cannot claim leadership while ignoring the cries of your own people. If America wishes to remain a beacon to the world, it must first light its own house. The protesters have lit the first candle. The government must not extinguish it. In Burkina Faso, we are rebuilding a nation once forgotten. We are learning that true power does not come from the barrel of a gun or from the weight of gold. It comes from unity, from the sacred bond between a leader and his people. And when that bond is broken, no constitution, no army, no election can save a state. Only truth can. The people of America are demanding that truth. Listen to them, not because the world is watching, but because your conscience demands it. Listen, because every empire that refuses to listen eventually collapses. The fall of one always begins with the silence of many. And let me speak not as a head of state, but as a human being. There is no joy in watching another nation bleed from within. There is no satisfaction in seeing chaos consume those who once lectured the world about order. I wish for America what I wish for Burkina Faso. Peace born from justice, not fear. Order born from respect, not repression. Leadership born from service, not... No king should exist. No single man should stand above a nation. The true king is the people. In every village, every city, every street, the people are the heartbeat of destiny. And when they stop believing, the nation begins to die. That is the law of history, written not in ink but in blood. If I could speak to the protesters in America, I would tell them, do not let despair consume you. Your fight is part of something larger, the global awakening of the human spirit. From Ouagadougou to Washington, from Bamako to Boston, from Accra to Atlanta, the message is one. Dignity is not negotiable. And if I could speak to those in power, I would tell them this. Humility is not weakness. In a world drunk on pride, humility is the last act of strength. It takes greater courage to bow before truth than to hide. Behind authority, power tempts leaders to believe they are gods. But humility reminds them they are human, and that humanity, not hierarchy, is the true foundation of leadership. The arrogant leader sees himself as a master. The humble leader knows he is a servant. Only a servant can truly protect the house. Listening is not surrender. It is not defeat. It is the first step toward wisdom. When a leader refuses to listen, he builds walls where there should be windows. He surrounds himself with echoes instead of voices. He begins to mistake silence for loyalty and submission for peace. But silence is a volcano. It simmers until it erupts. Listening is not weakness. It is survival. My brothers and sisters, understand this. What we speak of today is not a privilege. It is survival. It is the only lifeline that keeps a leader connected to the heart of his nation. Without it, power begins to rot, and rot always births tyranny. The real measure of leadership is never how long you can silence dissent, but how deeply you can understand it. Anyone can crush a voice that takes no wisdom, no courage, but a listen, to look into the eyes of your people, and see not enemies but human beings. That is true strength. That is moral courage. Great nations are not built by cowards who fear criticism. They rise from the hands of those who welcome it, who see protest not as rebellion but as revelation. Every voice raised in the streets is a messenger of truth that has been ignored for too long. They are not chaos, they are the compass. Their cries are not a threat to order. They are the alarm of a system that has failed. Yes, the crowd may shake your power, may even frighten you. But they are not your enemy, they are your reflection. They are your teachers, your living report card. When they shout, it is because your whispers of justice grew too faint. When they gather, it is because the doors of dialogue were slammed shut. When they defy, it is because they no longer feel. If you wish to lead them first, have the courage to learn from them, for in their defiance lies your lesson. In their pain lies your education, the kind no textbook can teach. It is the voice of the mother who cannot feed her child, the hands of the worker who has lost hope, the eyes of the young man who feels unseen in his own land. That, my friends, is the real curriculum of leadership, written not in ink but in the suffering and strength of your people. So when you look at the crowd, do not see mobs, see mirrors. Each face tells the truth about the nation you lead. Some faces carry anger, some fear, some hope. But all of them cry out one message. Leadership is not ownership, it is stewardship. And stewardship demands empathy. To courage to feel what your people feel. Even when it burns, even when it shames you. Even when it forces you to face your own failures. A leader's power is not measured by how loud he commands, but by how deeply he listens. The strongest voice is not the one that silences others, but the one that lifts them. Leadership is not about standing above your people. It is about walking among them, carrying their pain as your own reflection. When a nation cries and a leader covers his ears, a sign his own downfall. But the one who kneels, who listens, truly listens, begins the rebirth of his nation. It is in that moment when power becomes human again, that hope returns. So to those in power, in America, in Africa, in Europe, in Asia, wherever arrogance has deafened the throne, hear this: do not fear the crowd, fear the silence that follows. For when the people no longer speak, it means they have given up not only on you, but on the very idea of change itself. And that silence, my brothers and sisters, is the most dangerous sound in the world. Do not call them enemies, call them mirrors. Because every leader who refuses to face the mirror of truth will one day be shattered by it. And I say to the world, do not mock America, do not celebrate its turmoil, learn from it. For the same greed, manipulation, and arrogance that divide and exist everywhere. Every nation holds within it a tyrant, waiting to rise, when the people forget their power. So let this be our lesson. When the people forget they are the king, the tyrant returns. Today I speak not to condemn but to awaken. Let these protests remind us, no ruler, no matter how mighty, can outlive the truth. Let them remind us that history belongs to those who dare to question, that fear cannot rule the world forever, and that every dawn is born from the courage of those who refuse to bow. I believe in that dawn. I believe in humanity's power to rise again. The road ahead may be hard, it may be painful, but remember this. Once the fire of truth is lit, no king, no terror, no empire can ever extinguish it.